At first glance, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard may seem like a wholesome video game about the importance of family, but there's one small thing that makes me reluctant to say that a 4-year-old would enjoy it. During the heartwarming introduction to the Baker family,
Good person.
a can that is clearly labeled with the word meat sits on a table. However, if you take a closer look, you'll notice that a candle was accidentally placed in the can. I don't know how this error made it past the development team, but if you can ignore it, the rest of the game's pretty solid. Resident Evil 7 begins with the protagonist, named Ethan Winters, traveling to a small parish in Louisiana, where his wife, who was thought to have been missing for the past 3 years, claims to be located. Now, I don't know if Ethan just figured she was taking a vacation on some random family's farm and didn't want to tell anybody or what, but for some reason, he arrives at Baker's property with no weapons or ways of defending himself. The Baker's farm is decorated with signs that have been written in blood as well as some dead cows. It doesn't match my personal taste in outdoor decor, but I guess when you live in the middle of nowhere, you sort of just throw things together using whatever you have laying around. Ethan eventually stumbles upon an old house where he finds even more creepy things. Chief among them is a VHS tape that contains a found footage video. The recording follows a group of guys as they explore the old house that Ethan is currently in the process of searching. Look at this dude. He thinks he's a part of the Blair Witch Project. Alright, buddy, you can come out of the corner. Huh, I don't remember this from the movie. Ethan goes on to find a hidden passageway that was shown in the video, which leads him to his wife, Mia. The family reunion is very short-lived as Mia begins to have a panic attack. Ethan decides that this is a good time to split up, just as any good survival horror protagonist would a few minutes after seeing some rotted corpses floating around. He manages to walk through about half of one room before Mia suddenly disappears. She then reappears and attempts to murder him with a chainsaw. Ethan murders her a few times and then he gets stomped on. And that's pretty much a poorly told summary of the intro to Resident Evil 7. The game really starts to pick up once Ethan is dragged back to the Baker's mansion. Your first task is to escape Jack Baker, who maniacally chases you around with a shovel. Jack is probably the best character in the game. He's essentially a psychotic southern dad who will stop at nothing to hunt down Ethan. Jack has the ability to break through walls, although when I played the game, I only saw him try this once. Some people may end up getting annoyed by Jack simply because he refuses to die, almost like he's a zombie in a Resident Evil game or something. I personally struggled with the chainsaw battle against him. At least half of my deaths in this game came from that fight alone. I call Jack Baker a zombie, but that's not his actual classification. You don't technically encounter any zombies in Resident Evil 7. The main enemies are referred to as molded. The strategy I used whenever I encounter one of these guys is a little something I like to call running for my life. It's a pretty creative name, I know. The basic philosophy behind this strategy is that there are a decent number of molded roaming around and not enough ammo to combat them. In most cases, running away is a good option because the molded don't seem to have the ability to open up doors. After you escape the Baker's house, you get to see the great outdoors for a few seconds. Ethan's next task is to enter a house that's dealing with a bug infestation. The bugs aren't too much of a threat. However, I would highly recommend not taking the wildly stabbing at the air while holding your knife with two hands approach to this fight because, well, let's just say it's not as effective as the running for my life strategy. The bug house is where you encounter Jack's wife, Marguerite. The VHS tape that features Marguerite is pretty scary because if she sees you, she'll instantly kill you. When I first saw her in person, I figured she would be a scarier version of Jack, but no. Instead, she walks around the same two rooms until she spots Ethan, at which point she'll stand in one place and shake her lantern around, which calls in a few insects to start biting him. I felt like I had been catfished by a VHS tape. Lucas Baker is the son of Jack and Marguerite. It's pretty obvious that his mind didn't need to be warped to make him a killing machine because he had already been wired that way since he was a child. He mostly builds traps and puzzles, but before you go out and get an education from Harvard to prepare yourself for the brain teasers, just know that as long as you can match a spider's shadow with a silhouette on a painting, you should be able to solve all the other puzzles. Much like the other Resident Evil games, Biohazard has logbook entries that reveal interesting lore and cool connections between previous characters and locations. There's not a single note in this game that isn't significant in some way. If a ship gets mentioned in an entry at the beginning of the game, then it's going to have some sort of impact on the story. If a note mentions a remote control on the bottom of a trophy, then you're going to have to press a switch on the bottom of a trophy. If a note mentions 100 dog heads, then you're going to have to collect 100 dog heads. By the way, you never have to collect 100 dog heads. It's more like 3, but you still have to work for them. I would talk about the entire story, but I figured I probably shouldn't spoil it just in case my description of this game has somehow managed to convince one person out there to buy this 8-year-old game. If you're someone who enjoyed the scarier, slower pace of the older Resident Evil games, or maybe you're just looking for some wholesome, family-friendly fun, then Biohazard is the game for you. Please like and subscribe and watch some of my other videos. I'm sure they're all better than this, and goodbye.